Lovely. So welcome everyone to the April quarterly meeting of the K12 Community of Practice using post-secondary data, which we shorten to K12 CoP. My name is Angela Jubinville. I use she, her pronouns, and I'm with QIP, or Quality Information Partners. We're the entity that is organizing and supporting the community of practice with funding from the Gates Foundation. And I have a few other colleagues on the call. I'll say Elizabeth Lieutenant is working on a dual enrollment advisory group that I'll talk about in a few moments. She asked me to introduce her on her behalf as she has some needy pets. And then I'll allow my colleagues, Denise and Alexandra, to introduce themselves, starting with Denise, please.
Hi, I'm Denise Lawson, and I'm also with QIP, and I am helping to um, organize the Action Fund, which many of you have heard of, and also help Angela with the Community of Practice. Nice to meet everyone.
And hi, I'm Alexandra Henning. I'm also helping Angela and Denise and really anybody else who needs help. And specific to this community, I do have some technical background, and most recently I've been working on developing the version 13 of the SEDS data warehouse, which let's see when that version will come out. But if anybody has like SEDS related questions or data related questions, I guess I can help you guys with that. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, so anyone who's just joining, if you could just put your name in the chat, the organization you're representing, and if you're affiliated with a state, please include that state as well. And it's great to see so many representatives, not only from states here, but also from organizations with direct connections to these post-secondary outcomes data that we're here to talk about today. So I will share my screen and do a brief presentation on what brought us all here today. So we're here on behalf of, because of this K12 community of practice around using post-secondary data. This is just a brief agenda. We've covered the welcomes and introductions. I'll give an overview of this community of practice. I'll let you know about an opportunity to participate through an advisory group around dual enrollment data elements. And then we'll have a community-based discussion. So you're the community, I have some discussion questions, and I'll turn the floor over to you all to talk with each other, to share best practices, challenges, questions, what have you. And then we have some exciting next steps. So the community of practice, it's a freely accessible site. Anyone can join. The prime audience are state level K12 post-secondary data users. So we're talking about post-secondary outcomes data, but the community is focused on folks who work in the K12 space and want to use these post-secondary outcomes data to improve programming and supports and services for students as they transition from high school to post-secondary. I will share these slides in a follow-up email so that you can click on all of these links. And this is a number of ways how you can participate in the community of practice and support this work. So we have a forum that I'll show you in a moment, which is like an online discussion board where folks can have discussions. We have a monthly newsletter. If you've registered for this meeting, I have signed you up for the newsletter, so you're welcome. As I mentioned, we have a dual enrollment advisory group. I'll tell you a little bit more about that opportunity. In addition to these quarterly meetings that happen on those months listed there, we also have a regular speakers series. So every month we don't have a quarterly meeting, we'll have a speaker. Last month we had Bill DeBon from NCAN come and talk about how states use NSC, National Student Clearinghouse data. That was very well attended. You can find a recording of that meeting on the homepage of this community's website, which I'll show you in a moment. And then our next speaker will be on May 20th. So save the date for that. I'll be sending some information with more details around that. And then the last thing you can do is share and download resources. So again, I'll show you, we'll start with, so this is the homepage for the site. If one of my colleagues could put the URL in the chat, that would be super helpful. You can see right here on the homepage, there's the button here to join the forum, which I'll go to next. This join also takes you to the forum where you can register and join. The engage button will take you to register for the quarterly meeting, and the share will take you to the resources page. And if you want a colleague to sign up for the newsletter, they can click this button there. Our last speaker series video is right here. And then just a little intro video about the community of practice itself you can find right here. Down here, we'll always have important dates to remember. Right now, it's the meeting we have today, so I'll update that soon to be the next exciting thing, our speaker series. This is some information about the Action Fund, which Denise is helping to run. Our applications to participate are closed, but we'll be providing updates to the community around that work as it progresses. And then we just have some featured resources here. So next, we have our resources page. You can click this, it takes you to a Google form where you can submit a resource that will add to the website for you. And then it has all these great resources. This is getting a revamp. And so probably by next week, this will have like search capabilities and just more information about the resource. As you click on it, it takes you to a page with more information about it before you go ahead and read it. And like I said, ability to search by categories and to type in. So we'll let you all know about that exciting upgrade as it happens. And then the forum. This is how you can engage with each other outside of meetings. You can see, I'm already logged in, but if you weren't, you'd come to this page and it would say, please register, and you'd register. Then I approve you, and then you can log in and participate. So we have 2 forum boards. This one's more general. This one is specific to the dual enrollment, using dual enrollment data, and specific to the advisory group, which I'll talk about next. So the Collaborate to Improve Pathways for Students Forum, we have a number of topics here. The ones I want to highlight in this meeting are the introductions, which is getting a lot of activity since we started posting about it yesterday, and the National Student Clearinghouse Data and Tool. So in the presentation that I'll share, you'll see these 2 specific topics or conversations, discussion threads, however you want to call them, linked. So as we have our conversation today, if there's stuff you want to take into the forum, I would recommend using this topic right here to continue those conversations. Just click on that so you can see there's not a ton happening. You know, I posted a general question a couple months ago, and then Bill DeBon from NCAN, who's an amazing partner for us all in this work, posted a specific resource and a couple of resources. So you can add your own question, topic, resource here, or you can specifically reply to something someone said by clicking on this little reply button, okay? And then the other exciting thing that's been happening in this Collaborate to Improve Pathways for Students forum is this introduction thread. Well, let me go back so you can see. We're already on the 2nd page of posts, which is very exciting. So my colleague Meg asked folks to introduce themselves, gave us a little format to use, and folks from the community, a lot of you on the call, have been responding. And it's really fun. I'm especially enjoying reading everyone's fun facts. And just so you know that us here at QIP, we are taking notes on what you've listed here as your biggest issues, and we're going to use that information to continue to develop resources for you all and, you know, kind of drive and determine the focus of future meetings and whatnot. So okay, great. So the next thing I wanted to talk to you about before I open the floor for the community to discuss is this dual enrollment data advisory group. So here at QIP, we started this work back in 2023 by hosting focus groups with states around how they use post-secondary outcomes data and get that data back into the hands of local decision makers like districts and high schools. You can find all of those reports on our website, and I'll also link that in the follow-up meeting email. And from that, a lot of folks talked about the need for better dual enrollment data elements so that they could have better ways to track the success or transitions of dual enrollment students, right? How is that impacting their outcomes? So we developed a discussion paper. It is posted to the forum, and now we're starting an advisory group that folks can join. The discussion paper will be the jumping off point for our discussions, and from that we'll develop recommendations around how to use dual enrollment data elements and what data elements are missing that could make everyone's lives better and easier for tracking students. So in order to join, you can either just join the forum that I just showed you and you'll receive an invitation. I'll be sending an email out tomorrow to everyone who's registered, asking them if they want to join, or you can contact me directly. Just send me an email and I'll send you a follow-up with here are the next steps kind of thing. Any questions about the dual enrollment data advisory group or anything before I continue on? And you can just unmute yourself or put that in the chat. Okay. So I'd like to turn it over now to you all to discuss. And again, I'll share these slides. And just so you know that this blue link here, the NSC Data and Tools, is going to link you to that forum thread, that discussion thread, so you can continue this conversation. And this Student Tracker 3.0 links you to the National Student Clearinghouse's that section of their website that gives you information about this. So I have some questions here. We don't have to stick to these. I won't read them out loud. You can go ahead and read them to yourself. Oops, I'm sorry. And I wanted to point out that this last question came directly from someone who's in the meeting and someone who's on the forum who had posted this question to the forum. And so I went ahead and added that here because that's the most important thing, is the questions that you have for each other and the information you want to gain and exchange from one another.
I have a question on this. The Student Tracker 3.0, is that only for the high schools, or is that like all subscribers to National Student Clearinghouse from maybe a community-based organization? Or is it just specific to high school districts that are using it?
Yeah, well, I hope it's okay to put you on the spot, Michelle. I didn't ask you beforehand, but we have someone from the National Student Clearinghouse who works with Student Tracker 3.0 here, and I think she would be best positioned to answer that question. So can you answer that question, Michelle?
Absolutely, and I'm happy to. Hello, Kathy. Nice to meet you. Yeah, I'm Michelle Grolick. I don't know if I might have met some of you before at a conference or, at the NCAN conference, we go there. But Kathy, you are correct. I'll call it the first rollout, if you will, for Student Tracker 3.0 is for the secondary institutions, the high schools, the districts, those consortiums like an archdiocese or something, and even the states that work mostly with the secondary. That's the first rollout, as I said. And we know the vision is to get all of the organizations, including your community base, like you said, onto the new platform. It's just development when you have this much data and trying to make it work for a lot of audiences. It takes time. It takes a lot of time. So hopefully very soon we'll have good news for you.
Thanks, Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
And do we have anyone on the call who has transitioned to Student Tracker 3.0 and maybe they could feel comfortable talking about their experience with that and how they're using that data?
Okay, this is Michelle again, Angela. I'll just chime in again. So we have what I'll say rolled out 3.0 to the high schools, districts, et cetera, slowly, just to make sure people have time to get used to it. It's very, very different from the current model. And we are, I would say right now, almost every what we call the Student Tracker High School Service user that has that account has now been enabled for 3.0. And we're starting to send what I'd call official notifications so that they'll find out. A lot of folks find out on their own just by hunting and pecking. A lot of times they will send a question about their current student tracker service, and we let them know about 3.0. Any of y'all are out there, you might have sent a ticket into student tracker at studentclearinghouse.org. So we've been adding you. So right now, it just really all came to fruition in March. So it's not like it's been out there for 3 years and folks didn't know. We're just really gearing up, I'll use that word, right now. And if you are on the current student tracker high school service, if you're familiar with that, we are setting a spring effective date. It's actually going to be today. So we will start sending the current student tracker reports probably next week soon. But you should be able to go into the Student Tracker 3 application. Again, high schools, districts, states, those consortiums, not the community-based, and get into 3.0. If you have any questions or challenges, send the email to student tracker with 2 T's at studentclearinghouse.org, and more than likely you're going to get a response from me because I've been managing that queue.
Can you type that into the chat, Michelle?
Of course. Oh, great idea, Angela.
Mhm. So it seems like maybe there's not a ton of users or any users on the call who've made this transition to 3.0. So, you know, we can open the conversation to something more general. If you want to speak to any best practices you have around using National Student Clearinghouse data, or questions you might have for others on the call about how they use it. And I'm actually going to stop sharing this slide, and I'll just pop the questions into the chat so that we can see each other and have a conversation. Yes, Grace, I see your hands raised.
So if our state is trying to switch over, do they reach out to Michelle on Student Tracker at studentclearinghouse.org to update to 3.0, or how is that? I mean, you said you're going to start with the schools first.
You're muted, Michelle.
And I think that was Grace that asked the question. And Grace, you're from New Mexico?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Let's see. I want to say New Mexico might already be set up, but hold on.
I had a meeting with Secretary Rodriguez at Higher Ed, and she was very interested in switching to 3.0. So I think they were going to get a reach out to you, but I just wanted to make sure they reached out and to the right person.
Okay, well, I can see that New Mexico has been enabled with Student Tracker 3.0. And it's very possible that the contacts we have are more data focused. Like, does Daniel last name starts with a B? David last name starts with a W? That's who we have listed at New York Public Education Department as users.
Is that New York or New Mexico?
No, New Mexico.
Okay, because you just said New York, so I was just making
Oh,
sure.
I did. Oh my God. I'm so sorry. No, it's New
No,
Mexico.
it's okay. I just wanted to make sure.
Okay.
So I will find out on the IT side.
Mhm.
And in terms of getting their contract amended to have us as, we're the New Mexico Educational Assistance Foundation, assigned to their contract to do their data, how do they need to do that?
Do you have a data sharing with them?
Not as, we have it with the ICER data, and they want to get us on the clearinghouse data.
Okay, so we need to hear from someone on their side. Again, one of the 2 names that I mentioned. But if you're
Okay.
not sure, like, use the email I put in the chat, student tracker at, and put a note in there. Please give this to Michelle, you know, that you were on the call. and then I can follow up with our contacts. Each state has a designated account manager. It's either Samantha or Angela. And so one of them may be the one to facilitate getting that done.
Okay. Thank you
Not
so
this,
much.
not Miss Angela, just so you know.
Oh, yeah, our Angela from the clearinghouse.
You've already got enough going on, right?
Yes.
Okay, I see there's Angela comments in the chat, but I haven't been looking at them. So now.
Oh, yeah, that's okay. I don't think any are specifically directed at you, but
Okay.
Molly put something in the chat for everyone. So I'm going to review it now.
Okay.
I could just say it out loud.
Please, thank you, Molly. Yeah.
Sure,
Hi.
sure. Just that a lot of and I'm Molly Schultz with West Sound STEM Network, and we serve a lot of school districts on the Olympic Peninsula. So a lot of them are like far, far removed from bigger places. Like for example, like Fort School District, it takes like 3 hours for a lot of organizations to drive out to them to like put on college fairs and things. So they don't access the data on a regular basis. And I say they, like a lot of them don't. And so I was just curious what kind of talking points you all have found effective with high school leaders. Many of these people like are the vice principal and the CTE director and also teaching in the classroom, because in the small schools, one person will wear a ton of hats. So curious what kinds of messaging has been most effective for why this is useful for them. Like the current student tracker, the new student tracker, and kind of like that. And if this is too far removed from the conversation, we don't have to go here either.
No, that's great. And I just want to clarify, are you asking everyone on the call, or is that a question specifically directed to Michelle?
It was to anyone on the call that has thoughts about this.
Thanks.
And if nothing comes to anyone's mind, I can just plop this in the forum and see if other people have thoughts.
Thank you, Molly. Yeah.
Yeah, Molly, again, this is Michelle. I would just, again, this is just me. And we have a lot of high schools that use the service directly. They've learned about it. They want it themselves. And a lot of times, and I don't know again how much you know, but you get aggregate counts and you can get student detail. So many times when it's the high school, they like the aggregate count so they can see the different outcomes, but they love student level data. And as long as that student who's gone to post-secondary does not place a FERPA block on their records, we can return the post-secondary records in Student Tracker. So it helps them to see, and I just use this example, especially counselors or college and career, even principals, they know certain students, maybe they've been working with them, mentoring them. You know that these students have, shined at science fairs, et cetera. So you want to see how they're doing, what they're majoring in, where did they go? Not just where did they go, but are they continuing? Are they making that progress? So for me, when it comes to high schools, I love letting them know about student level detail. And in 3.0, I'm just going to throw this out. Some of you might be familiar with the current student level detail. It's unwieldy. It is huge because it returns a row for every enrollment term that the student has in our database. So it could be, sometimes just one, could be 8, 12, 20, depending upon what the student has. But in 3.0, we've created a new report that condenses the detail into one row per student. So it's a lot easier for someone to see what's going on with that student. And we call it an analysis ready. So again, one row per student, Molly, but it's really, really wide. There's a lot of outcomes in there. But if you just breathe and take a look, and we've got a good mapping document, I think the counselors and whatnot would, I think they would find that useful.
That's really helpful. Thank you, Michelle.
Yeah, thanks, Michelle. And I see Michael and Roxanne have their hands raised. I'll start with Michael because he's first in my list. Michael, you're muted.
I play a game in my organization where someone does that and we have a bingo card. Someone could have just got bingo on me there. Nice to meet everyone virtually. We have a lot of different interest organizations, all apparently using NSC or interested in using it very differently. So I think this is going to be a great group to be a part of. I just had a quick question for Michelle or clarification, even maybe for the entire group. A little nuance, but you mentioned the FERPA block. But what happens is that the student's record is masked by saying that they're not enrolled, which is different than not reporting the student record, because you would know then the student went to college if you don't get the student returned in your data.
Yes.
And if it's one or two students, that's not a problem. And a lot of smaller organizations that have often like a financial aid component, that they require the student to directly prove their enrollment to that organization. And so they can track and know things that are going on. My organization has program partners in almost 20 states. And we have a lot of things happening in different spots. In some places, FERPA blocks are not much of an issue. Been working with Marty inside of NSC, Marty Schmidt.
Oh, yeah, he's my colleague, Marty Schmidt. Yeah,
Okay.
I talk to Marty every day.
Yep, he's been very helpful in helping me identify where the high schools are, that the block rates are in excess of, say, 10 students or 5% of our data. Southern California, I have places where it's over 20% of high school graduates have FERPA blocks, which is a huge problem for the student level data. So I just wanted to double check. I don't see how the tracker could get around the problem that I would have, and I'm using the FTP server to get my data. I assume it's the same problem.
Right. No, it's not unique. If the student, okay, the column you referenced, it's called in the detail report, record found, yes or no. And if it says no, that's what you're talking about. So no could mean we didn't find the student, based on name or students not in the database, or that the student has placed a FERPA block. And people have begged me, can't you at least tell me if you have it, but it's blocked? And our lawyers, they're always they're extremely conservative. They say the way they interpret the regulation is the act of placing the FERPA block is part of the education record, which means we can't disclose it. Okay, and I don't want to say I fight them, but I push them continuously that we need to change this. And I'm continuing to push because I think it really would help if we could get the students with FERPA blocks returned, if we could meet the exception. So I don't have it yet. On the community-based side in that service, though, there is what we call a consent-based service. And again, it's a different agreement, but you have to prove or give us the document that you get the student's permission. You have to give us an example of that. And that's where the sales side of the house can help you with the actual agreement on that.
Yeah, that's not a solution for my organization.
Oh, okay.
We have 200,000 students across the country being served by a college access advisor. That's not possible. But
okay.
In the aggregate report, we do get an accurate count. We are told how many of the students did enroll in college.
Okay.
Right. So in the aggregate, we know what has happened. It's at the student level that we wouldn't know which ones are being reported as no record found, even though they're in the aggregate count.
Yep. Okay. Correct.
And Michael, could you just let us know which organization you're from in case?
Yeah, it's a college advising corps. So we have about 30 institutional program partners across the country, primarily four-year colleges like University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill, or University of Southern California, like all over.
Thank you. And Roxanne, it's good to see you. I'll turn the floor over to you.
Yeah, nice to see you. I'm Roxanne Murphy. I'm with the Arizona Board of Regents. And I'll just say hi to my colleague Andrea because we do so much work together. So as I share a couple of things, like feel free to chime in, Andrea. But before hopping on to some of the things that we've shared, Molly, I was just going to say for the National Student Clearinghouse and the blocks, we do have another data source at the state level through our Easy Transfer portal. So where we track enrollment for all students who are in one of our Arizona institutions. And we actually do know students who have blocked on National Student Clearinghouse, but then haven't, because we collect all of that in a portal. We've been really adamant, there was at one point in time where an entity wanted to share like what the actual college going rate is for our state if we're looking at those or considering those. And at the end of the day, collectively, we decided not to, because if those students are saying no somewhere, then we need to be, it felt like an ethical consideration there. So I just wanted to add that we actually do. And I imagine other states do too, because it's our transfer data that we have. So we're able to dive into that. Also add that we have multiple tribal colleges, and so they don't actually report to National Clearinghouse. However, that data exists within that portal too. But just as a state, we thought ethically it wasn't appropriate. So I'll just add that as part of the discussion point. But then Molly, hopping on to the question, and this is where Andrea might be helpful too, but we do a series of like college and career readiness workshops at district levels, or workshop might not be the most appropriate name, but we do them at district levels. And then what we do is since ADE and ABOR, we have an agreement with the National Student Clearinghouse. We have it with ADE, and then we analyze the data. But rather than for some of our smaller districts or districts who aren't utilizing National Student Clearinghouse, we usually start with having them take a peek at the top 10 institutions that their students are going to, and really having them reflect on like ways that they might strengthen those partnerships with the institutions. And a lot of times, at least I hope so, that it maybe doesn't feel like additional work because they already have relationships with those institutions, but it's how could we strengthen it to better support students as they go on to those institutions, and or invite those institutions to our campuses more and more, especially in rural Arizona and things like that, and probably rural everywhere. Like it's those those personalized kind of handoff connections that allow our students to feel more comfortable. And so that's kind of one of the ways we've approached it is starting with the top 10 to really think about developing those partnerships. And in some ways it feels, I don't know, I think collectively, like Andrea, and we also work really closely with a nonprofit in these, it feels more approachable than sometimes looking at student by student. And it's like a way to kind of impact all your students if, are a large majority of your students, if you're looking at the top 10 or, even starting with like the top 3 institutions that students are going to. So just a thought there over here on the Arizona side.
That's a really terrific idea. Thanks for sharing.
Anyone else have anything, maybe an idea that came up from what Roxanne shared, or if you had a specific question you wanted answered, the reason you came to this meeting, you can share. Yes, Michael.
Didn't mute myself. Progress. Uh, Roxanne, could you, sorry to, I was listening, but I think I missed one or two words. The decision, your state agency to not report the college going rate, is that just, yeah.
Sorry, and I think I left out a few words too. The college going rate, if we were looking, since we have access to all the students who have opted out, through a different data set, or at least those who have opted out to all of our four-year universities, community colleges, and tribal colleges, we collectively decided not to share that college going rate. We continue to just share what what's from the National Student Clearinghouse, because we just kind of really thought through those students who are opting out, and if we're sharing them in a space, but they've asked us not to share in a different space. It was just a lot of conversation. So I probably left out some words instead of sharing the rate that we could have if we were looking at all those who opted out versus those from National Student Clearinghouse. And I will just add too, and Andre, you can probably speak to this more. We at ABOR, since we analyze the data, we don't get the aggregate, like we don't get the state level report. We get the individual student level data, and that's what we report. So the aggregate number for our entire state, we don't get that. If that's helpful too, we just get the individual student level data. So we don't see on our end what that number is at an aggregate level.
And I think, Roxanne, moving forward, I could be wrong, but I think you guys are going to get that now with the new contract, but I don't want to speak ahead. I think they're still negotiating that because we're still negotiating our new contract moving forward with ABOR. So the way that ours currently works is ABOR pays us for our data. We have a DSA with them, and we are trying to currently work out terms because it was up for renewal so that we can work it out. Because what we were finding is that with the way that we have it and with what Roxanne was talking about with the road show, although we're branding it to a new name this year called the Snack Pack. So we're super excited about that. But it's where we go out and we present information at a very high level to schools to talk about all the statewide resources as well as the data that schools have access to and ways that they can use the different resources and data in an actionable manner. The hope is that they would then come back and then want to have us come and do a more deeper level, looking in that data. But what we found over the last 2 years is that when we go out and do that, is one, a lot of our schools don't have access to NSC data for various reasons. Either they don't know about it, school counselors aren't aware of it. In our state, we don't have a lot of our master's level programs that go in depth about what that looks like, and so what we found, and then too, just you guys might know this, our school counselor rate in the state of Arizona is the highest in the nation. I think it's like one. It could have went down. I think it's like 1 to 667, if I'm quoting that correctly. And so, there's just not enough time in the day for our school counselor to really put out all their fires as well as do all the things that they need to do to help support our students. And so we're getting all these requests after we've done these road shows with our school counselors and with school administrators and CTE directors about this data. And so what we found is that we didn't currently in the contract that we had existing have a way that we were able to share that data with those schools unless they had a current existing DSA. So we went back to our data governance team to find out if there was a way that we could do that. And so I think moving forward, the way that we should be able to structure it, if everything, cross our fingers, goes smoothly, is that it should be written in that we will now be able to share it moving forward with all of our LEAs, and that ABOR will now be able to share it with all of our LEAs in a way that LEAs will no longer have to pay for that data moving forward. And that was thanks to us attending one of the data convenings that NCAN put on back in, I think it was February. So that was really great because we found out that other states were doing something similar. So we were like, well, how do we get in that? We're a local control state. So we wanted to see like apples to apples, where were other local control states being able to kind of figure out ways to do that as well, and cut through some of the bureaucratic red tape. So that was kind of the way that we did it. And then kind of to what Roxanne was saying in terms of like opting out and opting in, what we've seen too is that when we were having some of those discussions, just ethically too, I know for our agency, if for whatever reason, I know what we've seen and I have college age students who've gone through the process. It seems like our 4 years have ways where maybe intentionally students would have to go in and opt out of the NSC data. And for our 2 years, it looks like there's a different process. We don't know what that process, always looks like, but for whatever reason, whether as soon as opting in or opting out, we didn't want to kind of go through that process if we just didn't ethically feel good. So we chose to only share data of students that intentionally opted into that, which is what Roxanne was kind of talking about earlier. And so that's the data that ABOR then shares when they're talking about our persistence data.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that, Andrea. And if there are any resources you can think of to add to the forum discussion for folks to pull and read and look at, that would be great. So thank you so much for that. And Michael, I see your hand raised. Please go ahead.
Yeah, it lowered it after some point. Like I wanted to follow up. I was asking the question because I thank you for answering, Roxanne. It seems like that creates an interesting problem for benchmarking states' outcomes. Like I don't know how other states would handle that if people are doing it differently, or if certain states which are going to have a higher incidence of FERPA blocks do the same thing. We collectively have a poorer understanding of what's happening, so that that seems like a consideration as well. Like if that's the data that's reported for Arizona, for example, and that's what I saw, it's the college going rate's much higher. And if another state doesn't have that, right, states look different for what's happening. And I think that's an important consideration, because like if California did that, we would think their college going rate's 10 percentage points lower than it is. Like we would just have a very fundamental different understanding of things. And only internally you might know, or people that talked with you would know to think about it. Could be higher. We don't know because they're not reporting it. And I had no idea until today that that was happening, or to think about it that way. So now I'm really intrigued to know where else this might be happening. And then at the end of what Andrea was sharing, that was my other thing. I don't have a good understanding, Michelle, and I don't know if NSC does, why FERPA blocks happen, where they happen, and so forth, because this isn't widespread across all of California where I'm encountering it. It's primarily two-year college enrollment, and it's primarily Southern California around the LA district. And I know I spoke with somebody at NSC at one point, and I thought it might have even been you, about
maybe
trying to find out, like, why is it happening there? And there was a conversation with LA about to happen. Like, like sounds like it's happening for a lot of different reasons, more than I even considered. And I'm really intrigued also by the intentional opt-in versus the passively opted in versus the active out. I didn't know there was a third option. I thought like everyone just passively, or you have to actively opt out, but apparently that might be different. So my head's just okay.
Yeah, Michael, I don't know that I can give you an answer on that. I think each college and university may have a different way to capture the student's block. And I think if any of you have good relationships with your with a college or university, is to ask them if you can and find out what the language is. How is it that students are choosing this? And Michael, this, maybe it was you, this was several years ago. It was, I want to say Riverside City. That's a 2-year college. And I can't remember exactly. This was, gee, was way before COVID even. Whatever they were saying that the student would check yes or no or whatever, I would check yes, block me too, because it was so legally scary that I think the student just felt like, oh my gosh, I absolutely have to do this. And I think it's important for the college to help. There are ways you do want to keep that data private. You don't want it anywhere. But then there's other ways that maybe like in Student Tracker, when you're really trying to understand metrics, that it would help if the student wasn't blocked. So I don't know. I mean, it's something we should probably look to more, but colleges will listen more to you all out there in the field probably than the clearinghouse.
Yeah, we have over 1,000 institutions that students enroll in any year. So it's like we can't have those one-on-one conversations. And just one last quick thing. It's not so much just the aggregate counts, in which I can know that through the reporting I get. I'll know how many total went to college, and I know what my denominator is. It's the analysis of programming, right? If you want to evaluate whether the programming's working and you're using student level data, it's a double whammy. You're missing enrolled students, but you're also counting them as they didn't go to college, and you're trying to understand why are people going to college. So, right, if you have the masking in the student data, it really destroys the possibility of doing evaluation accurately.
I was just gonna say that I totally understand where you're coming from, Michael, too. And I'll just add too that we've been having a lot of conversations on student autonomy and them being able to own their data and how they share their data too. So I feel like it's just, one of those, yeah, just something that all of us are kind of grappling with too. Like, where does student autonomy come into the picture? And but totally understanding where you're coming from too, where it's like we want data to better understand, more data to better understand and analyze what we're doing. So I just want to say I feel you on that.
Sorry, I was just looking up while you were talking, David. My son is in school in Kansas. I'm in Arizona, and I just went to go look at his form because I know he's a freshman over there. So I know for him, I had to go and intentionally, put the FERPA down and spell out everything that I wanted access to, for me to have access to, which is super interesting because, I always say the joke that like they'll bill us as parents, but they won't talk to us about the bill. But it is interesting that on his account, I can see that no, he's automatically opt in to, he had to intentionally opt out of NSE data. So it just signed him up automatically unless he went in and opted out of it. So I imagine that's how probably a lot of our 4 years might be set up, is that unless they check that box to opt out, they're just kind of passively going through that paperwork, and not maybe paying attention when they're going through that enrollment paperwork or documentation, knowing what they're either opting in, or out of, where what at least I'm seeing in Arizona, it looks like with our 2 years, and I have a meeting in May with one of the presidents of our 2 years. But what I can see on some of our 2 years in Maricopa County, you have to intentionally opt in. So I don't know why there is a discrepancy there, but there is.
Any other comments before I start steering us towards wrapping up? And you can tell I'm pretty uncomfortable with the long silences as a facilitator. So, okay, you can interrupt me at any point. We have about 6 minutes left. My wrap up will only take about 3. So I'm going to pop in the chat. This is a link to this specific post thread I referenced that we can continue this conversation. You saw there's many other spaces to continue the conversation within the forum. You can start your own topic. So that's just a suggestion as to where to continue the conversation, but choose your own adventure. If you're not registered and you click on that link, it'll prompt you to register. And then I believe once you do and I approve you, you can go to that link. So, okay. Real quick, I want to share my screen again to, well, hold on, to show you some next steps. Cue that up. Here we go. So lots of action items that you could do. As I mentioned, continue the conversation here. Please check out the introductions thread. It's super fun. Introduce yourself there. Email me if you want to join the dual enrollment advisory group or just learn more about it. Save the date for our next speaker series, which will be on May 21. And spoiler, it's going to feature Michelle again. She'll be back. So, and then I've created a Google form, or we've created a Google form where you can suggest speakers, including yourself, or quarterly meeting topics. So you can go ahead and fill that out. And then our next quarterly meeting is in July. As I mentioned, you're all signed up for the newsletter, so you'll get that information at the beginning of the month, of each month around that. And I think that's all we have for you today. So thank you all. Yes, Michael.
You anticipate, you saw that. Quick draw there. Did you say that a link to the presentation notes would be available? So like all that information, I'm screenshotting some of it.
We will make that available. Thank you for that suggestion. So we are absolutely taking notes. I'll send some notes out with a follow-up email that will include a recording, slide deck, lots of links, and some notes.
Thank you.
All right, thank you all so much. And I'll put my email in the chat too if there's like literally anything you want to tell me or ask me about this. Share some recipes, you know, whatever. Hold on, I have to make sure I type it correctly. Partners. Yeah, so if you have feedback or questions, comments, concerns, please email me. So, and I hope to see you all soon. Thank you so much.
Great discussion. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.